Airports are supposed to be some of the safest places on Earth, but what if we told you there was a man who not only broke into an airport, but made millions off of them? Today, the security of airports is airtight, but this wasn't always the case, and it certainly wasn't before the turn of the century, and many people took advantage of that, but none of them quite like the man we're going to be discussing today. But to understand how he pulled this off, we have to take a trip back in time to a country that really likes maple syrup. The Pearson Airport, situated in Toronto, the largest airport in Canada, and its security is basically the same as the Pentagon. But in the late 80s and early 90s, the security was much less impressive, and it's during that time that our story takes place. This bustling international hub, known for its absolutely huge cargo terminals, became the unlikely stage for a string of ingenious robberies that left both the authorities and the airport administration scratching their heads. Amidst the ceaseless flow of goods from around the globe, the airport's gigantic storage facility, designed to accommodate a pretty large amount of shipments, became a silent witness to these crimes. And it's not surprising when you think about it. This giant warehouse, packed with an array of the most high-end and expensive products in the world, just sitting there for the taking. Even a priest would think about it. Despite the stringent security measures at the time, which was a force of over 100 vigilant police officers, 24/7 surveillance cameras, and rigorous access controls, the unthinkable happened. Hundreds of items of valuable cargo, including cutting-edge cameras, hard disks, and computers, some worth as much as $500,000, began to vanish without a trace. The mind-boggling nature of these thefts meant that there was no way the police could investigate it like it was just a regular case. So they made a specialized police task force. Their mission was simple: to find out how these expensive goods were being stolen from the warehouse, despite such heavy surveillance. But as the task force would soon find out, they might as well have been chasing shadows. The level of security at the airport just seemed impossible to get by undetected. Every day, every single employee's tag was checked, and every corner was under investigation and surveillance. And yet, the disappearances continued, seemingly mocking the efforts of law enforcement. But it's not like the police were doing a great job. Now, this was by no means a smooth investigation. Honestly, it was the exact opposite. You see, there were a bunch of issues with the investigation. The sheer size of the facility meant that missing cargo often went unnoticed for extended periods of time, weeks, even months on end. This meant that by the time the police figured out the items were missing, they were already long gone. Plus, the absence of a modern inventory system in the 90s meant that keeping track of things was not as easy as it is today, turning the search into a wild goose chase. What's more, the delay in reporting these thefts to the police was a huge setback. Crucial evidence, which might have been present at the scene, was lost to time. Without any leads or clear starting points, the investigators turned their focus to the warehouse employees. But they hit a dead end there too. The workers were extremely close, almost like a family, and they didn't do much to help the police. Their responses, cautious and guarded, offered no insights, and their solidarity destroyed any attempts at infiltration. As the years passed, the thefts kept happening, despite the increasing security and surveillance. The police had gathered as much evidence as a group of 9-year-olds would have, so they began theorizing. They came to the conclusion that the only way that anyone could steal so many things without being detected was that a large crime organization was operating right inside Pearson Airport. They thought that it had to be people both in upper management and among the crew, since they needed to know what things were there, where they were, and how to get them without raising suspicion. It made sense, and so they began investigating. But they were completely wrong. The truth was much more simple. The thefts at Pearson Airport, initially believed to be the work of a super smart crime ring that was familiar with the airport's operations, took an unexpected turn. Contrary to the belief that a network of insiders was responsible for these crimes, the mastermind behind these crimes was just one man, not a high-ranking official with in-depth knowledge of the airport's workings, but a simple truck driver. This unassuming man managed to circumvent security and pilfer cargo worth over $7 million before selling it across the world. The question is how one guy could pull off all of this. Is he Harry Houdini's long-lost grandson or something? Well, no. All it took was a little outside-of-the-box thinking. The truck driver, Ho Lam Ho Lamong, was a Vietnamese immigrant who arrived in Toronto in the late 80s with just $50 to his name and dreams of making it big. And Ho Lamong was prepared to do whatever it took to make his dream come true. In his pursuits, Ho Lamong first made himself at home with the Asian community in Toronto. He quickly earned the name Smiley because, well, you guessed it, he was super nice and basically always smiling. His kindness made it pretty easy for him to become a beloved part of the Asian community in Toronto. It wasn't long before Ho Lamong met Teresa, a fellow Vietnamese immigrant. They instantly had chemistry, and it led to a relationship. The couple soon married, and Ho Lamong moved into Teresa's apartment, where he also became a stepfather to her teenage son, Benny. Now, his personal life was set, and so he turned his attention to making a fortune. So, how did this love story turn into a crime thriller? Well, Teresa worked for a shipping company and she managed to get a job for Ho Lamong as a truck driver. His role involved collecting shipments from Pearson Airport and delivering them across the city. Despite how important his job sounds, the salary was just $1,600 per month. It was far from sufficient for Ho Lamong's dreams of being rich. Now, since Ho Lamong's job was to personally deliver high-value goods, it gave him insight into how much they were worth. He realized that even a handful of these items, if stolen and sold, could bring him a pretty good amount of money. However, his role as a delivery man posed a big challenge to any plans. To execute his scheme, Ho Lamong understood that he needed access to the warehouse itself. But that was the big flaw in his plan. He didn't have the employee pass necessary to enter the warehouse. Upon arrival at the airport, his routine involved presenting his ID card and pass to the security guards. This was the one hurdle he needed to overcome to execute his plan. Fortunately, being called Smiley came with its benefits. The man knew how to charm people, and so he began charming his way through the workers. To deepen these relationships, Smiley began extending invitations for dinners and offering thoughtful gifts, making a network of friends in the warehouse. But he wasn't just getting chummy with them, he was conducting research. Ho Lamong identified the workers that were in bad financial situations, people with big debts and unpaid bills. He decided that this group, which was pretty desperate for money, would be more susceptible to his scheme. His plan banked on exploiting their vulnerabilities for his gain, and that's exactly what he did. One day, he decided to put his plan into action. Smiley quietly approached a worker who was loading his truck. In a hushed tone, he proposed a deal. If the worker slipped an extra skid of goods in his truck, he'd give him $2,000. No questions asked. Even though this was totally illegal, $2,000 is a lot of money, especially for someone who's struggling with money. And so, the worker took the deal without any hesitation, knowing well that the missing cargo would go unnoticed for a significant amount of time and leave no traceable evidence. When he got home, Smiley inspected the stolen goods and discovered it was full of high-end electronics. Altogether, the stolen cargo was valued at around $100,000. Having successfully made $100,000 with just one heist, the stage was set for a series of similar heists that, all put together, amounted to over $7 million in stolen goods. Despite the airport's strict security and the diligent police force working around the clock, one truck driver was silently orchestrating the most insane theft in the airport's history, and he was just getting started. So now that Smiley's initial investment of $2,000 turned into $100,000, there was a new challenge: finding buyers for his illegal goods. So Smiley got busy. He started to make connections with computer store owners, offering them these stolen products at prices way below market value, but still at a profit for him because, he stole them. As his operation gained momentum, Ho Lamong once again used his growing network within the warehouse. With another payment to a cooperative worker, he secured an additional skid, this time full of clothing items. Though less valuable than the electronics, stolen stuff still promises a big profit. He successfully offloaded these items to various contacts and friends, maintaining this trend of selling below standard retail prices to encourage people to buy from him. This pattern of theft and sale continued, with Smiley progressively expanding his network. He made relationships not only with more warehouse workers willing to take part in his scheme for a price, but also with an increasing circle of store owners and private buyers buyers interested in his discounted goods. Thus, his illegal empire began to take shape. The random nature of the stolen cargo threw the authorities off a lot. He was unpredictable with his heists. Electronics, clothing, or other merchandise, each heist fulfilled the search for new buyers, complicating Smiley's retail operations. To streamline this process and increase the efficiency of his crimes, he got the help of his wife, Teresa. And you know what they say, there's nothing like family. Teresa was working for the same shipping company and knew the logistics chain really well. That meant she had access to critical information about incoming cargo. She could provide details about the flights bringing the shipments, their values, and the specific warehouse locations where they would be kept. Armed with this inside knowledge, Smiley could now plan his thefts with precision, targeting specific types of goods and aligning his buyers in advance. Together, Ho and Teresa combed through cargo shipments, cross-referencing them with the list of warehouse employees whom Smiley had successfully bribed. This strategic approach allowed them to target the most expensive shipments, transforming their random heists into a calculated and highly profitable criminal organization. As the stolen goods flowed seamlessly from the airport to the black market, Smiley's empire continued to grow. As Smiley's thefts got even more systematic, he started to pre-sell the goods even before they were stolen. Just goes to show how impressive his operation was. His focus shifted toward more valuable cargo to increase his profits and to expand his criminal enterprise. But with the increase in stolen goods came more challenges, particularly in managing and distributing the inhuman amounts of stuff he was stealing. To address this issue, Smiley brought his stepson, Benny, into the fold. The bond between them was more than just a stepfather and a stepson. Benny held deep respect for Ho and was ready to help him in any way possible. He took charge of distributing electronics and computer accessories and immediately showed a talent for salesmanship. Benny, operating under the fake name Joe Yank, made his own network of connections with computer store owners. He made fake invoices and business cards, creating the illusion of a legitimate shipping company. This scam made the buyers believe they were getting legal goods from a real company. Despite Benny's excellent handling of sales, which allowed for quick offloading of the stolen merchandise, the family had a growing issue: the huge collection of illegal goods due to their regular heists. The need for a secure storage space was necessary now, because renting public spaces would be way too risky. Little did they know, their next step would bring them one closer to being caught. So, in a move of genius, Smiley purchased two houses next to each other. One served as their actual home, while the other was secretly transformed into a storage facility. Day after day, they transported cargo to this house, gradually filling it with their stolen goods. This constant movement of goods did not go unnoticed by the neighbors, who began to sense something was off about their new neighbors. But even though they were curious about what they were up to, Ho Lamong's friendly nature served as a perfect cover, and no one ever reported anything. And if anyone did ask, he had an alibi ready to go. He would casually explain that his occupation in the shipping industry sometimes meant that he needed to use his home as a temporary warehouse. As his empire expanded, so too did the challenges of distribution. The scale of stolen goods began to outweigh buyer demand, leading to a surplus stockpiling in his home, which was kind of a big problem. In this era of the internet revolution, the late 90s witnessed the rise of online marketplaces. One of them was eBay, a platform that enabled anonymous sales worldwide without revealing identity or banking verifications. The primary focus was customer satisfaction, with little regard for the origins or legality of the products sold. Smiley took this opportunity and made his way into the online world, listing his stolen goods on eBay. His competitive pricing strategy soon attracted a huge number of orders, not just locally, but from international buyers as well. The family adapted to this new business model immediately. Their house, doubling as a warehouse, became the center of their operation, packaging and dispatching goods. This streamlined process accelerated sales, increased profitability, and expanded their global reach to a pretty ridiculous extent. Remarkably, through eBay alone, they made over 19,000 transactions, which is an outrageous figure that increased their wealth and helped sustain the growth of their criminal empire for 13 years. And so, unknown to law enforcement and airport authorities, this elaborate theft operation continued unnoticed for over a whole decade. Smiley's strategy hinged on maintaining the loyalty of the cargo workers, who were absolutely vital to his scheme. Generosity, bribery, and support in times of need were his tools to ensure their loyalty. This approach guaranteed a steady flow of stolen goods, keeping the operation alive and undetected. Despite intense police efforts, including undercover operations, the investigation remained stagnant for more than 13 years. The authorities, monitoring the loading of cargo onto trucks, were unable to tell the difference between the legitimate business and the thefts. The sheer number of warehouse workers, which was in the hundreds, didn't help, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint a suspect. And so, Smiley continued his operations, completely undetected by the police. It was almost too good to be true, and as it turned out, was. The breakthrough in this case came unexpectedly in November of 2001. A computer store owner, one of the many unknowing buyers of stolen goods, reported a break-in and theft. This seemingly unrelated incident would surprisingly become the first thread in unraveling the large scam that was Smiley's criminal enterprise. As the police began to investigate this robbery, they didn't know it would lead them on a path to uncover one of the most sophisticated and long-standing theft operations in history. During questioning, the store owner told the police that the hard drives had been procured from a shipping company represented by an individual named Joe. He provided the police with a contact number for this mysterious Joe. Investigations into the phone number led the authorities straight to Benny, who was immediately placed under close surveillance. The surveillance operation proved more incredible than the police could have ever imagined. The police saw Benny transporting goods from his house and saw a huge wall of merchandise when he opened his garage. It was now certain they had finally found the thief who had managed to trick them for over a decade. Further investigation revealed the owner of the house to be none other than everyone's favorite Smiley, Ho Lamong himself. This surveillance revealed a detailed account of the methods he used to make his heists. The police tracked Mr. Smiley's movements from the shipping company to the airport, observing his standard delivery procedures of the illegal goods from his house. After the police decided that they had all the evidence they needed, the police executed a dramatic raid on Ho Lamong's residence on December 13th, 2001. The entire family, Ho, Teresa, and Benny, were arrested right in between a goldmine of stolen items. The house, to the absolute shock of the authorities, looked like a full-fledged warehouse. It wasn't just merchandise that was found. Cash was stashed in every possible corner of the house, under beds, on couches, in Benny's room, and even on the stairs, totaling an absolutely absurd $1.2 million. Charged with possession of stolen property, the trio faced serious legal repercussions. In a bid to protect his family, Ho Lamong and his lawyers offered a deal, a guilty plea, in exchange for the release of Teresa and Benny. His confession, acknowledging full responsibility for the elaborate thefts and returning over $6 million in cash and property, led the police to accept his proposal. And so, Ho Lamong received a reduced sentence, serving just 2 years in prison, after which he was released. Not a lot is known about his life after this moment. Probably decided to lay low, and that was probably the smart thing to do. Although we doubt it was easy for him to get another job. And that's the story of how a humble immigrant truck driver managed to build one of the largest illegal empires in the world. You know, it's ironic. The downfall of his grand scheme was someone else stealing the goods he stole in the first place. But that's just how things go when you mess with the law. Click the video on the screen. There's a powerful news story waiting for you.